Hi, everyone. Look at what I've got. Here's chocolate. Here's Fluffy. And I want you to know how I accomplished this tonight. It's thanks to one of you out there who you have your own cats and you have listened to me talk about how they love to play games around turning on the lights. And last week she sent me an email making me laugh about what she does with her own cats to get them to do things. And she said, why don't you try a can of what would be sort of like a fresh tuna or fresh turkey in a can, and just see if you have them and they're happy and they are eating a treat. You just pick them up and come up into your studio. And that is exactly what I did tonight. They were happy, their stomachs are full, and I thank you for that suggestion, and that in this Christmas season, what could be more wonderful than the love of the pure innocence of creatures like Fluffy and Chocolate. It is, to me, something that we are striving toward for ourselves as humanity, in spite of COVID, in spite of so many things that seem to be wrong, that the right is in our hearts and in our souls, and what it feels like to love and be loved by innocent souls like these creatures. And I just want to extend a huge hug through that lens to all of you. In this holiday, find what makes that pressure in your chest give you that sense of love with a cat, with a dog, with a human being. And now, dear Fluffy, dear Chocolate, I'm going to put you down. I love you, and you can go back to your food. One of the most interesting science news updates in a long time came on December 9th, 2020, with these words in New Scientist magazine, quote, "Physics might create a backdoor to an afterlife, but don't bank on it. Quantum information can never be destroyed, so some of the essence of you could live on after death, but it's not going to help the physical you," close quote, in this magazine. And they raise the question, is death the end? Or does part of us live on? These are questions in quantum physics now. And I was struck by the coincidence of such a headline in hard-nosed science news, while at the same time I was transcribing an interview that I did yesterday, December 15th. It's about aerospace legend, Professor Haim Eshed in Tel Aviv, Israel, who has released a new book entitled The Universe Beyond the Horizon that I mentioned last week on my Earthfiles broadcast. So far, the book exists only in Hebrew, but its focus is on Professor Eshed's long history of work for Israel's space and satellite operations. And a pleasant surprise is the book's epilogue, in which Professor Eshed has revelations about other intelligences from elsewhere in the universe, here on Earth, on the moon, on Mars, and beyond. And he says they have been based on Earth in our solar system for a long time. In the new year, I'm going to do a book review with the help of Ido Shimoni in Belgium, who has stepped forward to help me make translations from the Hebrew in that book to English. But it's the news in that epilogue that made the December 4th front page of Israel's largest circulation newspaper, Yedioth Aharonoth. The large Hebrew headline on the right reads, quote, The aliens have asked not to announce that they are here. Humanity is not ready yet, close quote. And on the left side, the smaller Hebrew text says, quote, Professor Haim Eshed headed the Israeli space program and led the OFEC satellite launch project. But it was only after he left his official duties that he turned to what really interests him, aliens. In his new book, The Universe Beyond the Horizon, Professor Eshed argues that aliens from all over the universe are already walking among us on Earth, that close encounters of the third kind are just around the corner, and that a galactic federation is delaying the publication of information to humans on Earth so as not to cause panic. Professor Eshed even tells how the aliens prevented some nuclear holocausts, close quote. The author of the newspaper article is Raanan Shaked, a staff feature writer for Yedioth Aharonoth. He describes Professor Eshed as, quote, one of the most respected and smartest astronauts in Israel, close quote. Professor Eshed headed the Israel Space Agency's administration at the Ministry of Defense and was directly responsible for planning and developing Israel's satellite program and launching the first satellite, OFEC-1, in 1988. Yesterday, Tuesday, December 15th, I was able to do a Zoom interview with Raanan Shaked about his newspaper interview with Professor Eshed. We began with, how do extraterrestrials get around this big universe?
You don't have to use rocket engine. You can go as fast as you like using quantum mechanics and black holes, and that is probably what they do.
Raanan, I just want to insert here. It is my understanding from current day physicists who have talked with me off the record that the advanced intelligences move space.
Yeah, exactly.
They collapse time like a waveform. They collapse time to zero, and then it is dot to dot. It is not moving with propulsion. It is literally moving space-time.
Exactly what Eshed showed me. He says if you're going to take this piece of paper and and you put an ant right here, and the ant wants to go over here, it's going to take it a while. But if you fold this like that, then she gets here in no time, right?
Right.
And this basically demonstrates how they fold space-time in order to, you don't have to propel the vehicle. They just use space-time. So yeah, that's one other thing he was saying. What else? Well, he said that President Trump almost gave it away because of his tendency to to tweet and talk quite a bit, but eventually he did not. Professor Eshed mentioned evidence that the extraterrestrials, that they have been in contact with quite a few world leaders throughout the 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s up till today, and that they have been given a permission to explore some limited parts, mostly in the United States, but not just the United States, and make some experiments for their own good and for their research, but they have conditioned it on the thing not being publicized. The extraterrestrials don't want to have it publicized before they decide to make an official contact, because they are concerned about mass hysteria or just general chaos that might occur here The extraterrestrials are kind of waiting for the right moment and the right conditions to be able to actually get in contact and kind of reaching out to us.
If Professor Eshed and so many other people that I have known who have remained non-public but have shared with me about their own face-to-face with non-humans over the past 50 or 60 years, and if Professor Eshed can talk about his own knowledge of a variety of advanced intelligences that are both studying the Earth and protective of the Earth, why can't the general human population be introduced in the same way? The physicists and the leaders of the world have not collapsed. Therefore, they have been working with advanced intelligences since World War II. Why then cannot that relationship be applied to the whole planet?
He said that the extraterrestrials are taking their time because of the possible outcomes of mass hysteria.
But they didn't have mass hysteria meeting with them, right?
Well, actually, he didn't. He said that he never met with them in person. He doesn't claim that. He said that he spoke to people who did throughout his work with NASA people and other people. The thing is that the people who did get in touch with the extraterrestrials sworn to secrecy, and if they ever break it, they usually pay for that with their lives. That's what he said.
Do you mean that people, humans, Homo sapiens sapien, who have talked about
about meeting with them, who gave it away, although they were supposed to keep quiet about it. They were executed. That's what he said.
Right, but are they executed by Homo sapiens sapien leaders, or are they executed by extraterrestrials?
By governments or by people, by governments or leaders who needed to keep it a secret. And I've asked him how can that be? Especially nowadays with social media and everything, how can you keep secret of that scope for so long? I mean, it doesn't make any sense. And he said, well, actually it does, because if you would think about, say, Manhattan Project, okay? There were like over 100,000 people working on that project. And how many people knew what it was actually about? 3 or 4 of them. So if a government decides to keep something confidential, that is what's been happening with everything that has to do with extraterrestrials.
Please now explain that segment of the interview where he goes into the deep underground base in a lava tube on Mars.
He just said that there was a base over there, and I said, how can there be a base, because we know the conditions on Mars. And he said, no, it's underground, and underground you have the appropriate conditions for astronauts, for human astronauts to work and live, and they share their work there with aliens or extraterrestrials, and that they've been there for a while, and it's all underground.
And that ties into what the scientist from White Sands told me in 1988, that he knew a physicist who said he had been to Mars 6 times to work in an underground lava tube base where humans and extraterrestrials were working. I had that experience in 1988. What is the collaboration about in the Mars base underground?
I cannot tell you. I mean, I don't know. I never asked him that. I don't know if he knows.
Well, we are all in agreement that even though Elon Musk is supposed to launch for the first time to Mars maybe in 2024, that you, Professor Eshed, I, and others have heard about a Martian base all the way back to 1972 in operation on Mars. What did Professor Eshed say about his personal knowledge of the advanced aliens' concern about our nuclear missiles underground, and what do they do?
Well, he actually said that they have always have been concerned with our nuclear weaponry, and that they have been following that as well, and that he knew for a fact that for a couple of times they have actually stopped or prevented possible nuclear crisis. He actually mentioned one example he gave me was the Bay of Pigs in Cuba, in which he said that the extraterrestrials have prevented or got involved in a way that sort of stopped the crisis. He said that they were playing tricks on American and Russian missile bases, nuclear missiles. I think that he said it happened at an American base. Yeah, they've tampered with the launch mechanism of the missiles, and they've kind of brought it on purpose to the highest level. They didn't realize why it was happening because they were awed. They were shocked, and actually they got all the way to the president of the United States, and eventually they've canceled it. I mean, they didn't launch it. They've canceled it, and I've asked Professor Eshed, would aliens or extraterrestrials do that? And he said just to prove to us what we're dealing with, and just to tell us to play nice with these things, and to take caution.
And so what you've just said on the record from Professor Eshed is that the extraterrestrial advanced intelligences that have been telling leaders since World War II or before, don't let the public know we're here. We are monitoring and we are doing our own laboratory experiments. That what they demonstrated, not only at the Bay of Pigs in Cuba, but around this planet, they have done this. Yeah, that we can control your nuclear missiles 80 feet down under the ground. We can take them down and we can turn them on. We can take them out. We can do anything. So don't play around with nuclear war.
Exactly. That is very much what Eshed said. Yeah.
What did he say about Elon Musk getting ready to launch to Mars?
Well, he said Elon Musk was aware of all of that stuff, and that Elon Musk was into the subject, and that Elon Musk is aware of the extraterrestrials, and that SpaceX, his company, do work on that matter. He said that, and he met with Elon Musk at some point. So that's what he said.
So when Elon Musk says, I don't know anything about extraterrestrials, he's just kidding us.
I don't know that. Well, Professor Eshed's sake is different, and he spoke to Elon Musk. So I don't know.
What did Professor Eshed say to you that has haunted you the most?
Well, for me, it was actually what I've told you about the cosmic fabric, which I found most haunting. I mean, he said that even after we die, our bodies no longer exist, but our mind and the experience that we've accumulated throughout our life do remain and become part of that cosmic fabric. There's something comforting about that thought. If it is true in any way, shape, or form, then it's great to know that.
After organic death, exactly, there is survival and contribution back to a cosmic whole. And would that not be the soul? The soul is the powerful recycler in and out of organic matter.
Exactly. And so, everything that you experience really has some meaning and does accumulate and stand for something. Conscious lives even after we die physically, and that it becomes part of the cosmic fabric of all the experiences and life And I've kind of asked him if he didn't think that our soul, or whatever you want to call that, our mind is just, every biologist or chemist will tell you that it's just it's a bunch of pulses and electronics and that goes through your brain cells. And he said, well, I don't think so. I think there's more than that, and it's one of the biggest mysteries of science, and it was solved yet. And it is his take that there's more taken from that cosmic fabric, and eventually goes back to there. Okay.
And that would be the soul recycling into the fabric and then back into organic life and then back to the fabric.
Professor Eshed said that our conscience, our soul, our mind lingers way after our body is gone. Yeah.
And for those of you who have been with me at Earthfiles YouTube broadcast now for the last 3.5 years, some of you will remember when I told you about my experience with the passing of my cat Simba, now about 3 years or 4 years ago. And that very dramatic moment at night when I was sound asleep, and yet something in this universe, the fabric, the cosmic fabric, made me wake up completely awake in the cat pose in yoga, looking at an oval in front of me right where the bed head was, and that inside of this glowing oval was my cat that I had buried a few hours earlier, saying, "Where did you go, Simba? Where did you go?" He was in my arms one moment, still alive and vibrant, even though he was so ill. And then a shot. And then, where does that life essence go? And how did he come back? As if to answer when I cried out in the vet's office, "Where did you go?" And then he was in this oval. And the oval had some kind of structure, and it went in a spiral, and I could see it. And that I literally jumped in the dark to grab my cat. And I could not interact, but I tried. And then it just faded out, and it was as if the essence of all that Simba had been in that life with me was in that cosmic fabric now, that had the ability apparently to come back for a brief period in time, not solid matter, but looking like solid matter in something that looked like a portal. I know how many of you have had similar experiences in your life from all of your letters. And it is now as if hard news physics is treading right up to exactly these kinds of experiences. And that Professor Eshed is saying, in the context of his knowledge about other life, that at the moment of death, it isn't as if all that we have lived, all that we have had joy, had despair, had the whole range, the bell-shaped curve of all kinds of interaction in a Homo sapien sapien body on Earth, that it all could go into the cosmic fabric in a way that has been incomprehensible to us, but that these events, these interfaces throughout thousands of years the humans have described, there is some kind of relationship between what we would call the fiber, the fabric of this universe. And there is that amazing title in the Hag Namadi book, the thought that dwells in the light, and that the light at the final end of everything, that the photons are what maintain and create the cosmic fabric. And somehow I feel that when I'm interacting with the sun in meditation, that there is something about always choosing to interface with the light on a regular basis that innervates and sustains, and that may be part of the evolution of humanity, is right now we are at a crucial, crucial crossroads. And I just pray we're going to go the direction of beginning to understand the cosmic fabric, which involves dark energy, dark matter, the whole issue of the thought that dwells in the light, and then Buddy Bolton's doing remote viewing for me about that phrase, the cold, dark sea, that would surround all of the universe says, plural. I would love to sit down with Professor Eshed and talk to him about all of that. And I have, in my discussions with the reporter, Raanan, we are going to see if something like that would be possible. And if so, I would share it with you here. I find this to be one of the most interesting kind of confluence of hard physics that is leading to the cosmic fabric. So I hope that sharing this tonight at this particular season will help some of you who might be ill, who might have people in your family who are ill. This is a time where being and feeling good is rare for so many people, that I hope that we are going to find 2021 to start moving us out of the intersection and in a direction that will be so much more positive. And that I've truly enjoyed doing this work with Raanan, and hope that there will be much more that will unfold, and that I hope you will let me know if you also find this step toward our universe being something like a cosmic fabric in which every single morsel of experience of trillions of galaxies, quadrillions of solar systems, that it all actually is absorbed and processed in something that is incomprehensible to us, but that we in our souls contribute to. I find it exciting. I hope you do too. And before we go to questions, I wanted to see if anybody in the audience right now might know anything about what I just received in an email today. It is from a woman in Norway, and she said, today in a Spanish YouTube channel, there was an interview with a Spanish lady who has been living for several years with her family in Norway. She reported that the Norwegian government has issued an alert to all citizens asking them to prepare for an emergency, and they want all citizens to make sure that they have food, iodine, batteries, toiletries, and other items. They have asked for, and the they implication is the government, They have asked for supplies to last for 3 days. The nature of the emergency is not specified. I thought that you might be interested in finding out what seems to be the problem. Now, the first thing I did was go into the computer and do a series of searches to see if I could find out anything happening in Norway. I couldn't find anything that would match this, and so I just decided that I would throw it out to any of you in Norway. Is there some kind of federal emergency, maybe a dry run? Is something going on experimentally? I would like to know if, in fact, there is a government request for citizens in Norway to get 3 days of medicine and food, and for why? Why 3 days? If any of this matches anything that any of you know, please email me at earthfiles@earthfiles.com. In this time where every 24-hour cycle in news, we do not know what to expect in so many different directions. Who knows? Maybe something is going on internally in Norway. I would like to know, and if any of you do, let me know. And with that, Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays to everybody, in spite of COVID and millions of unexpected things. Peggy, what have we got in terms of comments, feedback, and questions?
First, I'd love to say thank you to everybody out there for their super chats. So thank you, Moonbird, Daryl M., David Goodridge, Jeffrey Rizzo, Sonia, Mary Kelly, Rebecca Cole, Jenna McHugh, Galaxy Wolf 416, Judith Graham, Carolyn Cook, Judith Graham again, Jefferson Childress, Melissa, Eric Ackerley, and Isabella Pachetti. Thank you, everyone.
Wow. Really, thank you, thank you, thank you. It all means so much that there is deep appreciation, and it helps me keep this work going. So thank you so much.
The first question here, somebody would like to know, do you believe that the Martians died out, or could they have built an ark of some sort to come to Earth?
Well, what popped into my head immediately is John Brandenburg and his book, Death on Mars. And where John Brandenburg, a nuclear physicist, starts is with a hypothesis that the radioactivity that was measured by Viking 76 that had to do with if you had an atomic explosion and you were looking at the various radioactive particles that give you an insight into what kind, the size, where, that John hypothesizes that it was a hydrogen bomb, and that the hydrogen bomb on Mars was exploded up in the atmosphere on purpose in order to have a crushing compression wave on top of combined with the radioactivity, and flattened or destroyed a lot of what was in the northern hemisphere in that area called Cydonia. The reason I'm giving you that background is that he was invited to talk about exactly that at a NASA conference in September of 2019. So it is not like way outside of what mainstream scientists are either interested in or willing to consider, because it was presented in a NASA conference. If that were true, who was on Mars that would have been killed by such an act? Who would have been the perpetrator of the large hydrogen bomb? And if the perpetrators of killing one civilization on Mars are the ones that came to Earth, then there may not be cross-pollination, so to speak, about the progenitors that were on Mars and what happened on Earth. And what I mean is, John Brandenburg has a story that basically ties in with others, whether it's human abductees who get this impression that the Anunnaki of Mesopotamia actually came from Zeta Reticuli 1 and 2 that Betty and Barney Hill first talked about in 1961 as abductees in New Hampshire. And that's when Betty saw the map, and a woman named Marjorie Fish, amateur astronomer, went and did a painstaking, laborious match of yellow suns and various things in the neighborhood and came up with 37.8 light years, something like that, from our yellow sun to the suns of Zeta Reticuli 1 and 2 that matched, to some degree, Betty Hill's hand-drawn map under hypnosis that she said a gray-skinned being with large black eyes that she knew were artificial shields took her to a place in a spacecraft and showed her like a hologram, like a three-dimensional hologram of stars. And he said, "This is where we come from." And she said, ask a question. He said, "Do you know where you come from?" And she said, "No." And he said, "Well, then, basically, we can't have much of a discussion about where we are in relationship to you." And that seemed to pretty much sum up most of humanity's thoughts and relationship to other life in the universe coming into our solar system and interacting with any of the planetary or moon bodies in our solar system outside of Earth. We are provincial. We think in terms of our relationship to the Earth. So John Brandenburg's book and presentation to NASA, bringing up Zeta Reticuli 1 and 2 also as a possible source of something going on between that part of, we'll say, our local neighborhood. There's like 19 yellow sequence stars like ours, sort of like this garden in this little arm in the Milky Way galaxy. And that allegedly, depending upon various translations, interpretations, whether it's John Brandenburg's physics or somebody doing scholarly work, there is a kind of, we'll say, growing story that there were at least two planets in the Zeta Reticuli 1 and 2 system. Zeta Reticuli 1 is one sun, Zeta Reticuli 2 is another sun, so it's a binary star system. And the way it's been described by some abductees who have been exposed to this, think of an egg beater. When you do an egg beater and you have this kind of motion, that something like that is going on in this binary system, and that two of the planets had life and they didn't get along. And that one of them left and went to Mars, or ended up on Mars. And that whatever had happened in the Zeta Reticuli 1 and 2 system is responsible for what happened on Mars. And I know this is a kind of a leap of faith to just have this discussion without hard physical evidentiary material, but John Brandenburg, as a nuclear physicist, looking at xenon 129 and other ingredients on Mars, has come to the conclusion and written this book that there was a hydrogen bomb explosion on Mars in the atmosphere, and that part of this boils down to the comparison that what Vikings' measurements of xenon 129 on Mars was 2.5 times greater than xenon 129 on Earth in 1945 after 3 atomic bombs, the test at White Sands and the 2 at Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Now, if the Anunnaki side of this is anything like what has been written in history, they also had some vested stake in Mars before they got to Earth. And that the Anunnaki were geneticists, and that they came through Mars from someplace else, and they ultimately got to Earth. And then they did a whole lot of genetic manipulation according to cuneiform and translations that was one of their, I guess you would say, one of their main goals being here had something to do with genetic creations. Now, I've been exposed on April 9th, 1983 at Kirtland Air Force Base here in Albuquerque, New Mexico, to an alleged briefing paper for a president of the United States that said extraterrestrial biological entities manipulated DNA in already evolving primates to create Homo sapien sapien. That's this model. Before this model was Neanderthal, and you keep going back, Denisovan, you go back and back 2 million years, you get to Homo erectus standing up in Africa for the first time. In the work that I have been able to get translated to English so far from even Professor Haim, his work, he goes into the issue to some degree of genetic manipulation also of life in the solar system by advanced intelligences. So what would be the truth? That's what I definitely would like to know. What is the whole truth, the real truth about the relationship between other intelligences coming into this solar system scads of years? If that DIA man who talked to me back in December 1999 was correct, that our government has proof that 3 competing ET civilizations have been using Earth as a laboratory for at least 270 million years. That time scale is so big beyond Homo erectus not standing up in Africa until 2 million years ago, that you begin to see that our solar system could have had many civilizations from many, many places. We humans can only know what we have in front of us, or what we dig up from our Earth, or from non-humans who have come, landed, had straight-to-straight, face-to-face communication with the so-called power brokers and leaders of this planet. And if the Israeli physicist is correct, that it is the non-humans who have been in control of the secrecy. It's kind of upside down from the idea that human military and intel have been the heaviest, keeping all of the rest of humanity in the dark. This is kind of a different angle, that it is the non-humans, the extraterrestrial biological entities, who are saying we are not ready to know the truth. And therefore, they have insisted on secrecy. Again, I mean, I would wager that Professor Eshed is correct and knows a great deal, as well as others that I have talked to who seem to know also a great deal about different extraterrestrial intelligences, and especially the reliance on artificial intelligence for so much of it, that the craft are AI and do not need organic pilots, that there are so many different AI, as in one abduction case that I recall, when they were asked something about, this had to do with animal mutilations. They were talking to a gray in an abduction. Are you the ones that are mutilating the animals on this planet? And telepathically, they got an answer back from a gray non-human being in front of them. Well, you have to understand, when you reach a certain point of advanced development, you make artificial intelligence to do that kind of work. Like, no, I, tall gray, tall white, tall blonde, we don't go out and mess with your animals. We make artificial intelligence that does our bidding in any solar system or even another galaxy that we want it to. And I don't think that humanity has been conditioned to even speculate or even contemplate that so much of what might have been interacting with this planet for so long in the so-called UFO, UAP category could be artificial intelligence. That's how the craft that are organic or like a life form, this is how they can go thousands of miles an hour and stop, do 90-degree turns. They don't have any organic life that is trying to sustain inertial forces. The craft is the life form visiting Earth. So this is another one of those many, many, many faceted pieces that I'm trying to help expose you as an audience around the world, that there are so many pieces that we've all been denied. And I have learned at least some of what I think everybody should know. And so this is another one of those multifaceted answers, Peggy. But I think it was important to try to answer that question with some complexity so that people begin to understand how much is already known, how complex the distribution of consciousness is, and that when Professor Eshed tells the reporter that at the moment of death, the experiences and the part of you that are not organic recycle back into the cosmic fabric that keeps extending infinitely with all that we are, with all that we have experienced, toward some infinite landscape that we can't understand. But every single one of you is contributing. What about the next question, Peggy?
One of the viewers was just wondering, if the government knows about aliens, then why do you think they have two parallel space programs? And then why would they allow Elon Musk to build a private third space program?
Well, Professor Eshed told Raanan, the reporter, that Professor Eshed, had met with Elon Musk. And as far as I can tell, Elon Musk is the one who's going to be depended upon by the United States to try to launch in 2024. And this is now, it's like trying to find sentences to talk about what I think is the reality, but none of us have the top secret, open classified documents about what is really going on. But I think the United States is depending upon SpaceX and Elon Musk, and have been for a long time, to launch, to get to Mars, where that lava tube base, deep underground on Mars, has existed in collaboration with other intelligences that are not human since at least 1972. I think that is an honest statement. And then it means that Elon Musk would have the mission of trying to paper the huge disconnect on Earth from 72 to 2024, that we have meetings, we have missions, we already are working with ETs in this underground lava tube base on Mars. It's been going on for a long time. And somehow they have to join the future to the past to come up with a new present in which everybody begins to learn that, oh, we have a base on Mars. Oh, Elon Musk, he made it. That's probably what they had hoped the story would do. But before he launches, look at all of the various facets that are coming out. I personally think that Professor Eshed's account from Israel, the new book that has also provoked the newspaper story, I think it is one of the more important kind of handshake to the world from an acclaimed physicist who's 81 years old and said, I'm 81 and I have nothing to lose. Well, already, I don't know if any of you have been following some of the static that has been coming out of some of the Israeli military voices, but they are trying to say, yes, he is a great physicist, or electric, he's an aeronautical engineer. Yes, he is great. Yes, we honor what he did for our country. Yes, but he went too far in this. And as far as I'm concerned, that's the same old effort to cover up by government and political people who have kind of a knee-jerk reaction that they are expected to come up with a denial, a plausible denial to what they know is the truth, are the facts. This universe is teeming with consciousness. And why should humans be left out? Professor Eshed says it's because the advanced intelligences look at us as what I've said for a long time. We're babies. In many ways, Homo sapiens sapien are babies. But we have good, strong souls. and we are worth protecting. I believe that to my core, meaning if you're advanced, really advanced, and you have some relationship with the cosmic fabric and with the thought that dwells in the light, then you would want to do everything you could to protect Homo sapiens sapien from itself. And I thought one of the best parts of what I've learned so far about Professor Eshed's knowledge about the advanced intelligences was his discussion with the Tel Aviv newspaper writer that they know, the advanced ones know, that we play around things like nuclear weapons, and some have been launched, or something has happened, and the ETs, the ones that are really advanced and care about what happens to this laboratory planet, have interfered and stopped. And maybe we'll never know the whole truth, but I think that is, to me, the most positive, making me feel happier and more relieved. If that is true, then it means in spite of our warring instincts that are juxtaposed with these wonderful souls, that there is something that understands us, sees us, knows our weaknesses, but wants Earth to survive, and it has been helping humans. I don't understand why we can't all be told all of that, all at the same time, around this planet. I don't think humanity is going to fall down. That was one of the, I think, one of the important points that I made yesterday with a reporter. If the Homo sapiens sapien leaders in all of the nations of this planet have been meeting with advanced intelligences from other places in the universe for decades, they haven't fallen apart. They haven't gone screaming out into the streets. They've been making deals. We're in interstellar trade. The big gap is not letting the whole planet know, for sometimes cockamamie reasons that to me seem more to do with political power than what it seems humanity deserves, which is straightforward, honest talk, explanations to the whole world about the real truth of Earth's relationship to the universe. Okay, what about one more?
A viewer would like to know, who do you feel are the aliens who help, who want to help us, and who are the ones that are here to harm us?
I have been praying that I would get some kind of hard evidence that I could report to all of you with confidence that I knew what the truth is. I think that the complexity of lies for the last 10,000 years at least, that the complexity of lies have been there to be self-serving politically, and that in that self-serving politic paradigm, this might be a friend to them, a particular political point of view. And this is for the good of humanity. And they might be in total contradiction but this could be presented to us as an ally in order to preserve the human power broker self-serving needs. That which would genuinely honor our souls, a life form contributing to the cosmic fabric, might have a completely different relationship to money and barter systems and power, and could be presented to humans as something opposite of an ally by those pretending to be an ally who are not. This is why I started about 10 years ago referring to all of this as a 16-layered chess game, where you cannot tell the players their agendas and their motives without some kind of technology or help from artificial intelligence, and the list goes on. So the bottom line is that I think Earth is still in play. Think of a soccer ball. And there are teams, and the teams have various goals. And Earth as a laboratory is an extremely special planet. I do not think humans understand how special this beautiful, deep oceaned Earth is, which makes the whole issue of changing climate and fires and floods and all that could continue to happen even sadder. We should be educated. We should be educated by advanced intelligences about the incredible laboratory that we live in the surface on, so that we would learn, we could be educated, we could be helped, we could be shown how we can live happily on the surface with other beings who know how to protect. We can cohabit with beings that live inside of the Earth, inside of the moon, inside of Mars, inside of Ganymede, and on and on and on. And if we had genuine demonstration of help, it could be finally the first big evolutionary step that might preserve a future for Homo sapiens sapien. And if we aren't told the truth, if we can't come together as a species in the interests of our souls, of our children, of every other Earth life, then the consequences might be extinction. I really do think the consequences are that big. And that's why, to some extent, maybe a large extent, that I wanted to try to be able to talk as honestly as I could on these Wednesday nights, never with a sense of despair or fear, because I feel neither. And I hope, as so many of you write and tell me that you feel a certain calm when I'm talking to you about some of these complicated issues, because I don't feel fear. I don't feel despair. I feel excited by what I keep learning about what could be out in this universe, that if we could break out of this provincial, we are alone, which is not true, and the whole planet could somehow become involved in interstellar trade. Wow. Maybe the future is as bright and exciting as that sounds. Maybe this is the roughest time in 100 years. if we can just get through this by helping each other, what might be on the other side would just be glorious. Let's go for glorious. I love you.
Turn on closed captions for YouTube videos by clicking the white CC button on the lower right. The default language for Linda's videos is English. If you would like to see the captions in another language, click on the white settings button next to the CC button. Select Subtitles CC, and then select Auto Translate. Select a language, and the captions will now appear in that language.
Sort of gone through, and they will hold their heads. I never had a cat do that before. And they'll pull against the comb, helping me get out snarls. And I think it's the best they've ever been.